I'm going to turn things, this is our governance committee meeting of HFA. I'm going to turn things over to Linda, who will take the requisite legal steps to formally open our governance meetings.
Thank you. Good morning. I note that Erica Lewandowski, representing the Director of the Division of Budget, and Linda Baldwin. I don't see Linda.
I don't think she's there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. And Linda, I'm sorry, we'll start again. I know that Erica Lewandowski, representing the Director of the Division of Budget, is participating in the meeting via video conference from the New York State Division of the Budget Conference Center at the Capitol Building, room 131 in Albany. Good morning, Erica.
Morning.
I will ask for motions and seconds to call to order the December 14, 2017 Governance Committee meetings of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, the State of New York Mortgage Agency, the State of New York Municipal Bond Bank Agency, and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation. May I have motions for HFA, AH, and AHC?
So moved.
Thank you. And a motion for Sunny May?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. And a motion for MBBA and TSFC.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
As items are presented to each committee throughout today's meetings, these motions and seconds will be used unless specific items call for a different vote or unless any committee member wishes to record his or her vote differently. For purposes of convenience and to make sure the meetings of the respective agencies go smoothly, items shared by one or more of the agencies will be presented by the agency chairman, Mr. Adams. And now I turn it over to Ken.
Linda, thank you. We're going to start with item number 1, adoption of the minutes of the Audit Committee meetings held on September 14th, 2017.
Yep. Which should be governance, that's
It
my
should be the
bad.
governance,
My bad.
an adoption of the minutes of the governance committee.
Ah. Uh-huh. And I thought I would have caught that with the cup of coffee that I got coming in. We're going to adopt the minutes of the Governance Committee meetings that were held on September 14th, 2017. So there are 5. A was the 53rd HFA Governance Committee members meeting. B was the 53rd, these are obviously all in the materials, 53rd Sunny May Governance Committee Directors meeting. C was the 49th AHC Governance Committee members meeting. D is the 47th MBBA Governance Committee Directors meeting. And last but not least, E, the 45th Tobacco Settlement Finance Corporation TSFC Governance Committee members meeting. So you have those materials, and the directors and members. Does anyone have any comments or questions about those minutes?
I do. I'm not on the committee, but I was looking at the minutes. Is there a typo when it relates to OPEB? On the,
Can you specify which document you're looking at?
hold on, I'm trying to find it. I'm just doing something else.
That's the Office of Public Employee, what is it?
Benefit, yeah,
I thought,
Public Employee Benefits.
yeah, post-employment benefits.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I think it says OPEB in the minutes. Hold on.
Which one is it, Andy?
On the minutes of the prior meeting.
Right, which one, for which agency?
Well, I think it would. Well,
All of them?
I thought it was all agencies. I saw it in the. I think I saw it in the audit committee, but bear with me 1 second.
Okay, we'll pick it up.
Alex, if we're doing typos, September at the top should have a B in it.
Yeah.
Now, people,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Piling on.
I'm sorry.
Andy got some.
It's on the. Well, it's in my minutes.
focus on the large issues.
It's on the last page. It's a typo. It says, in response to a question from the community regarding the OPEB reporting requirements.
Okay, pick it up.
Okay, you got it. Okay.
Fix that.
I'm sorry. It was just a minor.
No, but that's,
Police.
that is careful minute reading, Andy. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Apologize.
No. That, on the contrary, that's why we're here.
Yep.
So thank you. Thank you and thank you. It sounds like Alex has picked that up and will make the changes. All right, so the next 2 items on the agenda are consent items. There'll be no discussions on these items unless the members or directors so desire. And this item 2 now is the resolution approving salary ranges for senior officers. And this is going to be presented by Linda.
Now before all 5 committees is a resolution of the Governance Committee of the State of New York Housing Finance Agency, the State of New York Mortgage Agency, the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, the State of New York Municipal Bond Bank Agency, and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation adopting a salary range for senior officers. Assuming the first and second were previously entered for all 5 committees, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motions are carried.
Thank you.
Erica. Sorry, the motions are carried and the resolutions adopted.
There is a review item and no resolutions, or this is a review item, I apologize, and no resolutions need to be adopted.
Okay, we're gonna remove item 3.
Okay, item 3 was going to
Oh,
be,
wait. No, I'm sorry. You go ahead. I apologize. You go.
back to item 3. Approval to extend the contract with Genworth, I apologize, Genworth Mortgage Insurance Corporation for administrative services. This is a Sunny May item. Item number 4 is a resolution recommending approval of the ESD goal plan. And this has been distributed to board members. And is everyone, we've got all those materials.
And Veronica's going to present.
And Veronica's going to present on behalf of Wanda Graham, I suspect. And one of you, they'll present, and then Linda will propose the resolution. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see both of you.
It's
great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Thank you.
Do you both want to introduce yourself for all the board?
Oh, sure, absolutely. My name is Veronica Flanders. I am the Assistant Vice President and Director for the Office of Economic Opportunity and Partnership Development. I work specifically with operations throughout the office.
Veronica, could you, if you just, I want to make sure, can everybody hear, I suppose, that's on video conference? Because there's a microphone and I don't know what you're supposed to do with it. Can you hear okay?
You can hear me.
Okay, great. Good, thank you. Please.
Hi, my name is Nidra Campbell, Assistant Vice President for Development Activities with the Office of Economic Opportunity and Partnership Development. I focus on development, mostly HFA, and the strategies with that.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Veronica, you're going to do the report?
Yes.
Great.
So this is the goal plan submission for fiscal year 18-19 for HFA and the associated agencies with that. This submission is due to ESD on January 15th of 2018. It's something we have to do. We don't do this out of, sheer joy. But, it actually helps to right the ship and keep things moving. So it is helpful. So on the second page of the goal plan, there is a graph that shows the expenditures and how it's divvied up. Yeah, that would be it. And basically what's to note here is that there was an increase in the overall development activities expenditure. It now comes close to 99% of all of the expenditures for HFA. So anything that happens with HFA directly impacts whether or not we make the goal. So that's the important note on this page. On pages 3 through 6, we're going to talk about the procurement activity and the bond-related activity, and as well as the development activity. We're really talking about the spend and how we want to analyze it and see how we can move forward. So the procurement activities yielded a 27% utilization in fiscal year 16-17. However, because they're so small, they really don't have much of an impact as to whether or not we meet the goal. In bond-related costs, in fiscal year 16-17, we hit 30%. We actually pulled out the remarketers. We left the underwriters in because that's where we actually had the opportunity. So we saw a great improvement in that field. But again, because that's less than 1%, it doesn't have much of an impact. So we're going to go into the area that really does have an impact, which is construction. So as stated in last year's goal plan, we actually wanted to analyze, and we did analyze, which trades are used, how many MWBEs we're using. So in doing that in-depth analysis, we found that we had a 27% utilization of MWBEs for fiscal year 16-17. We found that over the 7 years since we've been monitoring this program, there were 749 MWBE firms used, of which 635 are still certified by ESD. They were used in 159 trades, including soft costs. For hard costs, masonry was the most likely area in which MWBEs were used, and for soft costs, that was engineering. Despite the prevalence of the multifamily projects in our portfolio, though, one of the things that we thought was a little odd that we didn't see a lot of elevator firms, but then when we looked to see if there were elevator firms, there really weren't a lot of elevator firms to be used. So we'll try to do some outreach in that area as well. So that really covers what our analysis found. And then if you go through pages 5 and 6, that really just details what we think the budget is going to look like for fiscal year 18-19. It's not saying that this is exactly what it's going to be, but this is our best guess. If we look at pages 7 through 9, we're really talking about the exemptions and exclusions. Now, with the exemptions, those are items that are really, there's just no MWBE opportunity whatsoever. And you have contracts in there as well that do not meet the threshold of $25,000 that's spelled out in Article 15A. For the exclusions, that list is basically a list where you have no MWBEs playing in that field at this time. However, if MWBEs do come into that field, then we have to bring that back into the fold and count them towards our goal. Now, on pages 10 through 12, we actually talk about our outreach efforts. Part of our outreach efforts have included participation in industry-related events, outreach strategies for each area of spend, and in-depth discussion of outreach efforts for development activities. To discuss our outreach efforts, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Major Campbell.
Yes, so I will elaborate on our outreach efforts. Generally, for our general outreach efforts, we continue to update the Economic Opportunity Corner on the HCR website. There, we assist MWBEs with finding opportunities in procurement and development. We also provide links to Empire State Development so that they can find assistance for state certification. Because as you know, if they are not state certified, we cannot count them towards our totals. We also encourage certification for non-MWBEs that are identified on our utilization plans that we review for each project. On our procurement efforts, our Vice President, Wanda Graham, continues to be a member on every RFP and RFQ review committee to ensure that there is opportunity for direct or subcontracting opportunities for MWBEs. Now, the big development efforts. Here, we provide compliance and technical training to finance and development staff, the grantees, and our developers. We also attend pre-construction meetings to give them information about requirements, what is required, what we expect out of MWBE utilization. We also encourage our developers to host pre-bid MWBE forums in order to give information about their project and to attract MWBEs. We also provide technical support to MWBEs by helping them draft introduction letters to introduce themselves to developers or potential opportunities. We also will match MWBEs that responded to our outreach survey for developers who will come in as a response to the housing plan. That is something that we will do based on capacity, depending on the capacity of the MWBE. As previously, last year, we developed the Good Faith Efforts Committee. We have the Good Faith Efforts Committee to review our projects to review their efforts and to make recommendations of either waiver requests, if we need liquidated damages, hopefully not, and or bar them for state business for at least a year. Hopefully, we pray that we never have to get to that point. Now, a big thing that we are focusing on now are MWBE developers. Our focus is to conduct a feasibility study to determine if the agency should create a revolving loan program for MWBE developers through an RFP process. That went up last week, the RFP.
Yes.
So we're waiting on responses from that RFP. In addition to developers who have met and exceeded their goals, along with the MWBE developers, we plan to connect them with faith-based organization leaders who have land, as well as local municipalities who have land that want to build affordable housing. So that's our focus for outreach this coming year. We welcome any suggestions or ideas. Thank you.
And
Turn it over to you.
Just one piece
Yep.
of clarification on the RFP that went out. It's for a broad technical assistance program,
Right.
including looking at a feasibility study. So we'll be
Yes.
coming back to the board, but it's a very comprehensive approach that Lisa and Veronica and Wanda are taking
And it's meant, I'm sorry, it's meant to provide,
to provide
Provide-
additional support to MWBE
Developers,
developers.
right.
Yes. Basically teaching them how to be competitive, how
Right.
to fill out applications, build capacity, things of that nature. And
how
also
to access the agency's
access,
resources.
yes,
you
access
know.
the agency resources.
Oh, sure.
Does that
May I
also
ask a
involve
question?
pairing them, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Joyce first, and then we'll go, yeah.
Okay.
Does that also involve pairing them with more experienced developers to give them actual experience?
Well, right now, we have not necessarily discussed that because what we're doing is putting them with smaller projects, the faith-based organization projects, and the municipality projects would be smaller projects that wouldn't have the same level of impact as a larger project. So
Yeah,
we
we
want to
have.
see how they perform first on something that's small before we move them up and change to something that's larger.
Nestor had a question.
Go ahead.
You want, I'm sorry.
And B.
Is it
I'll
Bethia?
wait.
A comment?
No,
Yeah, it's
okay.
B, yeah, I'll wait, go ahead. So my
You all
question
s-
has to do with how are you, building your resource or your reference list from across the state? In Syracuse, this is a very targeted effort to grow our MWBE resources and community. And so I just want to make sure that you're connected with the people making that happen here.
Actually, yes, we are actually, what we have been doing, and Nikki touched on it in her portion of the presentation, but in anticipation of the housing plan, what we did was we actually reached out to MWBEs to get them to respond to us via a survey and find out what's their capacity, what's their previous experience, things like that, so that way we can get them in the room with developers in the different regions, so that way they can actually access those developers and get that
Statewide.
opportunity. So that's a statewide
That's
effort.
statewide.
So it will be targeted by region. We're not anticipating, bringing people up from New York City to go to Syracuse. So,
But Bethia, I think if you're aware of resources on the ground in Syracuse that we should be reaching out to, we would be thrilled to make those connections. So after the meeting, we can get in touch with you and perhaps you can make an introduction for us.
Please do.
Thank you, that was what I was driving at, thank you very much.
okay.
Okay.
Fantastic. So
Sounds
you will
good.
hear from us very shortly.
Okay, back to Nestor.
Great, thank you. First of all, I just want to commend both of you and Wanda. And I mean, this is, in the time I've been on the board, it's been incredibly impressive to see progress we've made, and I think it's really terrific. Second, I would definitely encourage you. I thought that the idea of getting more businesses certified, I think, is terrific. And I see on the subway, the city is pushing that as well. And I think if there's a kind of unified effort to get people certified, I think that's great. The one question I have is about the, not the 30% goal on development, but our past track record. I think you said it was 27% for the most recent period.
Yes,
Yes.
for 16, 17, that's the
Okay.
most recent period.
So this is maybe just a point to clarify in what you're going to be submitting in January, but when I was reading this last night, I actually did not see that data point. So you actually have, when you go back and look at past performance, you have the past performance overall, you have it for the bond issuance, you have it for procurement, but I couldn't find what it was, and your presentation clarified it for me. That's frankly a stunning number if we're at 27. I mean, if I'm reading this right, that's probably somewhere close to $400 million.
Yeah.
I don't know that we've made as much of that point as we could, but that's a pretty stunning footprint. And I think it's worth making more of, and I don't think it's as clear in the document where you track the number of firms that remain certified, but I didn't see that particular data point, which, again, is something I think we should be very proud of.
Okay.
Absolutely, we will,
Understood.
because I understand and definitely agree, our focus was to see where utilization is, but that's definitely an important point to include, so we'll highlight it.
Buried the headline a little bit there.
We'll put it in like, 26 font, we'll
Yeah,
put it,
good.
everything, yeah.
And just so you know, Veronica and Nidra and Fonda have been working with our press office to make sure that as we celebrate the projects that we do, we're also highlighting the MWB the projects that meet or exceed their MWBE requirements. So it just won't be on these type of global reports, but we'll make sure it's part of the press releases that go out on a project by project basis.
That's great. Nestor, thank you. Mark?
Yeah, so I think Nestor made some very valid points. So let's go back to the goal, the MWBE goal, 30%.
Yes.
Right? And there's 3 different achievement areas
Right.
from that, right?
Right.
Okay, so one would be procurement, one would be construction, and one would be bond related.
Right.
So it seems to me, based on the numbers that I'm reading, that we're achieving in 2 of the 3 very well. The one area that looks the weak link is construction. Is that
Well, the construction and procurement are actually on par.
Okay.
They both, I got 27% attainment. Again, that should have been highlighted in this document, for which I must apologize. But they actually did achieve over 27% utilization in development activities. Yeah.
Development and construction.
Okay.
are
Oh, the
part
same
of it.
thing,
Construction
yeah.
are the same.
so?
Yes.
If you go back to the agency's highlights, calendar year 2016, the procurement was the best. That was 29%. That has changed this year, and we know why. And you're going to
Yes.
mitigate that. Okay. Good.
Absolutely.
And then the bond related appeared to be pretty well within the 2016 year, and what I read yesterday.
Yeah.
The area that's the lowest that I'm seeing from the highlights of 2016, and so I'm asking what has transpired from construction. It seems like it's lower, and so the question is, within those construction areas, and especially on page 4, when you're talking about the number of firms utilized, in the trades, the building trades, there are building trades.
Right. Yes.
There are 18 different building trades. I know you know it.
Right.
I know who they are here in the city of New York, but more importantly, we know who they are in all of the cities. So I too would like to help with contacts that I have to help you, especially achieve within that area.
Thank you, Mark. And
Okay, you're welcome.
I suspect you all and Wanda will take Mr. Schroeder up on his offer. He has a wealth of contacts in Buffalo and Buffalo and beyond, as you know. It does. I have a couple of quick comments. I just want to know if other directors, members have questions or comments on this very helpful report. If not, I just want to follow on a little bit just with something Nestor raised, which is the ever-challenging issue of recruiting more firms and getting them certified. And, you know, one of the things that's one of the problems one hears, I'm trying to be delicate about this, is that I was speaking to someone from an MWBE firm earlier this week who had been able to certify with the City of New York really quite quickly through, I believe,
Right.
through SBS, and been able to certify through, I think, the MTA really quite quickly through the MTA.
Right.
And I thought that there was kind of a reciprocity with the state certification
Okay.
and some fast track type program.
Well,
Yes,
there is.
But I understand that there may be some hiccups
The
there.
fast track is not so fast.
Right.
It may rather turtle-like slow, yeah.
Right.
No, every time, for instance, I work with the HFA projects, I put in expedite requests all the time for MWBEs on behalf of the developer.
And you can
because
do
they're
that. You can expedite it if they're already in those
I-
other agencies, right?
If they are working on one of our projects,
Oh, no.
I can send in an expedite request to Empire State Development, but I can't promise the time frame. That's
Right.
where it's out of our hands.
Right.
I may receive a response, but it still may take 6 months to a year or
Right.
2
No, and
years.
Nidra, it's hardly your fault. And you might guess I'm somewhat familiar with the challenge. I just want, and maybe for Ruth Ann, and we make this kind of a collective New Year's resolution, we've got to figure out a way, and working with ESD, right, to help firms get certified efficiently and recertified when they come up for recertification.
Absolutely.
Because what you have here, to Mark's point, with just in development, an opportunity of $424 million next year. For, but you can look at you can look at your firms and utilization and say, I don't have people doing elevators, or I don't have very many plumbers or electrical subcontractors, and that's kind of pent up market demand, right? So we would want to be able to go to ESD and say, look at these opportunities, right? And by the way, look at the exclusion list, because everything on the exclusion list is an opportunity waiting to happen that lowers the goal, right? It lowers the available, available spend.
I think we will generously take you up on your offer and
Yes.
ask to talk to us
It's a
about
huge
that.
opportunity, and there shouldn't be these obstacles, right?
Well, you know, we actually did have a conversation with ESD. We've had several conversations
So-
about this, as a matter of fact. We tried to get, we actually had a matrix of what are the commonalities in the certifications, and they were supposed to come up with a universal certification.
Right,
That
so
didn't
Yes.
I
happen.
think we're happy to
So-
talk about this
Yeah.
and maybe see how we can facilitate
It
it.
would be,
List.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, again, this, I've said it before, this agency plays a leadership role because of the potential to spend $425 million to support the development of these firms and their businesses. It's a great opportunity.
As I'm still a director of ESD,
Oh, as it happens.
as it happens, I would be happy to help you in your dealings with them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Joyce.
much, Joyce.
Thank you, Joyce. Great. Any further questions or comments on
Just
this report?
one observation, and I agree too with Chairman Adams here on this, on the MWBE. And in Buffalo especially, where I know it, where I've talked to a lot of people, there is concern. It is like a 17-page application process. It's long and tedious,
Right.
and it's difficult.
Yeah.
And so what has to happen, in my view, and maybe we can get behind something like this, we may need to initiate maybe an academy, an MWB academy in some of our areas, and have some mentors, and have some, so that people can come in and they can get some guidance right away and take them through this process.
Well, I think that, so we have our technical assistance
That's a
RFP
great
out,
idea.
right? And that's one of the things we would like to
To look
do.
at.
So I think once we get in our applications and we score them and we're coming back to you to let you know the outcome, we'll have a lot more information.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. If there are no further questions or comments on the behalf of the board, and thank you both for your presentation, please give our regards to Wanda Graham. And congratulations on a great year and some ambitious goals for 2018.
They're not going anywhere, so. Next item. So,
Are we going to do service disabled veterans?
yeah, so
Good, I'm waiting.
why don't we
Why don't we move right ahead, Linda?
So now before the board, now before a resolution, I'm sorry, now before all 5 committees is a resolution of the governance committees of the State of New York Finance Agency, the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, the State of New York Mortgage Agency, the State of New York Municipal Bond Bank Agency, and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation, approving the annual updated and consolidated equal opportunity affirmative action plan, master goal plans for 2018-2019. Assuming the first and second previously entered for all 5 committees, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
Great, thank you, Linda, thanks, everyone. The next item is related. It's the resolution recommending approval of the OGS, the Office of General Services Goal Plan. This is for service-disabled veterans certified firms.
So this goal plan discusses the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Business Act, which was the goal plan that's pursuant to that act, which was signed into law May 12, 2015. This program allows eligible veteran businesses to become certified as New York State SDVOBs in order to increase participation in contracting opportunities. And the program is administered obviously by OGS, as you just said. What we are doing in this program is we're analyzing the agency's expenditures and identifying areas for SDVOB opportunity. Now, we work with the various departments to create procurement strategies to try to get SDVOB participation. And we try to identify the obstacles the agency faces in having SDVOB participation. And we obviously we have to monitor and report on a quarterly basis, just like we do with the MWBE program. For the purpose of monitoring SDVOB opportunity, the expenditures are divided the same way as they are for Article 15A, is construction, procurement, and bond-related transactions. Currently, there's less than 400 SDVOB firms. There's approximately 100 agencies that have a 6% goal. So obviously, when we do our planning to meet the goal, we have to be strategic on which contracts we're putting this goal on, because there's no way that we can put it on the whole bucket of expenditures. Now, for page 3 in procurement, the focus is going to be on service contracts as they come up. However, as we look at the report, there is no goal on procurement at this time because there's no anticipated opportunities coming up for SDVOBs in procurement. So if something comes up, we'll definitely look at having an opportunity there, but right now, nothing is on the radar, so we're projecting a 0 there. In development activities, there's 35% of that SDVOB directory that's geared towards the construction trades. So it makes it very difficult for funding recipients to actually find SDVOBs to participate. They've actually expressed this to our office. So the efforts are going to be continue to be made on the smaller projects, the agency grant projects, and some of the all affordable projects. Then we talk about page 4 or page 5, the budget, which is, that's just possible opportunity. Then when we move on in the plan, we talk about the exemptions and exclusions, which are pretty much the same thing as in the MWBE goal plan, with the exemptions being anything under $25,000 because that's the threshold outlined in Article 17B, or anything where there's just no opportunity whatsoever for SDVOBs. The exclusion list is a list of opportunities for SDVOBs, but there's just no SDVOBs that play in that area at this time. So if we identify somebody, obviously we have to throw them in the pool. Now, we outlined our outreach efforts, but because there's not a lot of industry-related events, we go to all the events there are, but there's just not a lot right now. This is a relatively young program, so as there's more events, we'll actually, we'll absolutely participate. And we actually do talk about what we're doing in each area to try to get SDVOBs to participate in construction and in bond-related transactions. That's where we actually get our utilization, is bond-related transactions. We have 2 SDVOBs on our panel, and they're being used very much so by finance and development, so it's very, we're actually making some great strides there. And obviously, we're going to provide technical assistance and training and try our very best to meet that 6% goal. And outside of that, that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Veronica. Questions from directors, members on this important presentation? Comments?
Just
Yes,
again, a point of clarification. This is, obviously a lot of work we need to do on this one. And I'm glad we're trying to do outreach. So you give the utilization rate for bond-related activities for fiscal year 16-17 at 9.76.
Right.
Am I reading this correctly that our rate for procurement and development was 0 or?
Yeah, for 16-17, we didn't have, the first time we actually saw utilization, I believe, was first quarter of 17-18. So since we don't have a full year of data for 17-18, that's why that's not documented in this document. But we don't have anything for 16-17 for either of those areas.
So is even a 6% overall goal realistic in light of that? I mean, again, thinking that development is the largest part of all of this.
Right.
I would say it's aspirational.
Yes.
It's aspirational. We've actually had a plan return for not putting a 6%.
Is 6%, what's the goal?
The goal is
Out there,
six-
I mean.
the mandated goal is 6%.
Thank you, okay.
Okay.
Right, so it's aspirational, but it's also in line with expectations
Yes.
Yes.
And requirements.
and requirements.
But that's why-
Yes, aspirational requirements.
But that's why, to your point, we have to be very strategic on which contracts we decide to place it on and try to shave that bottom line number to try to get to that 6%. Because there's no way we're going to meet it by using an abundance of SDVOPs.
We're hoping that more companies emerge in the field.
Yeah.
That our outreach efforts will then reach, but I think Veronica and Nidra, Lisa can
I just
offer.
want to say in procurement, on every single RFP, we put the 6% goal. We mandate that they come in and meet that goal or tell us why they can't. We also look at the OGS list, which they're updating regularly to add more SDVOBs, and we do our own outreach and send notifications if there are any that we can identify on the list that are qualified.
Right.
And we'll also send notifications to those SDVOBs. We also put in our RFPs for both MWBs and SDVOBs that we're happy for you to submit a proposal as a prime. If you want to submit as a sub but don't have the contact and you made contact for prime and you would like to be paired up and you don't mind having your contact information listed on our website, give us your contact information. We'll post it on our website for primes that are looking for subs that are interested. So we're doing everything we can on the procurement side, but yet we haven't received any participation thus.
Thank you. That's helpful information. Mark?
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to volunteer too much here.
Well, it's okay, you're here. You've come all the way down from Buffalo, please.
On the, just observations on the bond side, every time in Buffalo, when we do a refunding, we always do an RFP, MWBE and SDVOB, for underwriters and underwriter counsel. So we may, and we have achieved in those areas.
Yes.
So we'd be happy also to cross-reference and share some information with you as well, if that helps.
It does, absolutely. We'll take all that.
Yes.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Other directors with questions or comments? Again, in the spirit of networking to ideally find more firms that can get certified. P.S. Are they certified by OGS?
Yes.
So I thought, okay. And hopefully it's not a overly rigorous, time-consuming certification process, especially because there's a need to get more firms certified.
Right.
There are just two quick things. I work in CUNY, and as you probably know, each one of our 24 CUNY schools has a special person devoted to serving veteran students and retracting veterans and providing supports. So there's a whole network, and I suspect a similar network exists in SUNY across the state, where every SUNY school is going to have an office of basically Veterans Affairs. So you might think about working, this is just one example, this is going to take a lot of networking to identify people, including people looking to start businesses and entrepreneurs that are in our public higher education system, in, for example, a CUNY school here in the city or a SUNY school upstate, and they're there and they're receiving other veterans benefits and they look to launch a business and they may be able to provide a service to meet the goal. And the other kind of just networking hint is there's a great organization you probably know called ACP, America's Corporate Partners. Check out their website if you haven't lately. It's a national organization that links actually more recent veterans, people who've recently completed their military service, with business partners and advisors and mentors across the country in major corporations. So when you see the website, it's all the big Fortune 500 companies and more. who are doing what they can to help people, again, in many cases, find their economic footing upon return from active military service. And they're located, their office is about 3 blocks from here, for America's Corporate Partners. So there's some organizations out there that might be able to help you identify people that then could get some services, launch a business, and become part of the availability, address this availability challenge. All right,
Right.
Linda, we ready?
Ready as we ever be. Now before all 5 committees is a resolution of the Governance Committee of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, the State of New York Mortgage Agency, the State of New York Municipal Bond Bank Agency, and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation approving the annual updating consolidated 2018-2019 Article 17B Master Goal Plan. Assuming the first and second members for all 5 committees, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motions are carried and the resolution is adopted.
The next 3 items on the agenda are informational items. There will be no discussion on these items unless committee members or directors so desire. Item 6 is a report on the salary adjustments for management confidential employees. Anything to present?
No?
No.
Good. Item 7 is a review of a report on agency administration of ethics policy. This is all in our materials, and I want to remind everyone to review that thoroughly and often. And item 8 is an annual review of financial advisor services contracts with firms on the agency's pre-qualified panel. And that's important too, especially as we think about who's on the panel and pre-qualified for the purposes of service-disabled veterans business organizations as well as MWBEs. Now it says there is no unfinished business.
So then, assuming the first and second will adjourn the meeting of the Governance Committee, and so assuming the first and second previously entered for all 5 committees, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the meeting's adjourned. The next Governance Committee meetings are scheduled for Thursday, January 25th, 2018 at 9 a.m.
Linda, thank you. This is now turning over to Nestor, I believe, right? Are we doing
Audit.
Audit
Yes.
Committee.
Onward.
I am going to now turn things back over to Linda Manley, who will take the requisite legal steps to formally open our meetings.
Thank you, Nestor. I note that Eric Lewandowski, representing the Director of the New York State Division of the Budget, and Mr. Chris Curtis in his role as designee for the New York State Commissioner of Taxation and Finance are participating via video conference from the New York State Division of Budget Conference Center at the Capitol Building, Room 131 in Albany. Good morning, Chris and Erica.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I will ask for motions and seconds to call to order the December 14, 2017 Audit Committee meetings of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, the State of New York Affordable Housing Corporation, the State of New York Mortgage Agency, the State of New York Municipal Bond Bank Agency, and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation. May I have motions for HFA and AHC?
So moved.
Second.
Motion for Sunny May,
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Thank you. A motion for MBBA and TSFC,
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Second.
As items are presented to each committee throughout today's meeting, these motions and seconds will be used unless specific items call for a different vote or unless any committee member or director wishes to record his or her vote differently. I'll note that Chairman Kenneth Adams is agency's chairman and will chair the audit committee meetings for MBBA, TSFC, and Sunny May. And Nestor Davidson is the committee chair for HFA and AHC audit committee and will chair the committee meetings for HFA and AHC. For purposes of convenience and to make sure the meetings of the respective agencies go smoothly, items chaired by one or more agencies will be presented by Mr. Davidson.
Right. We move to item 1. The following minutes shall be deemed approved, absent corrections from members and directors. Adoption of the minutes of the audit committee meetings held on September 14th, 2007. We will now move to the action items. Item 2, resolution approving audit committee action plan for 2018. Okay.
Good morning.
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 In your materials is a summary of what the audit committee actions for the past year and a calendar for the current year. Most of the audit committee calendar is determined by requirements of when certain items need to be filed or certain items need to be approved by the board. Next month's meeting on the calendar is really an important one because that's where we approve the financial statements for HFA, Sunny Mae, TSFC, and MBBA. The independent auditor from Ernst & Young, Lou Roberts, will make a presentation at that meeting, going through required auditor communications with the audit committee. And the audit's going on right now. No issues have come up at all, and it's going along fine. Also at that meeting, we'll be distributing the evaluation form for the activities of the audit committee for the past year. And then the next meeting that we will be discussing that at the April meeting. So hopefully we'll be getting back the evaluation results sometime at the end of February so that we can include it with the materials for the April meeting. Then in June, the auditor comes back to review AHC and approve that one. And in September is the audit plan for the following meeting, so for the following audit. So you can see a lot of it is geared around the auditor coming in and giving the materials. Last year we had a training on accounting policy given by myself and Darrell Johnson that we focused mostly on Sunny Mae at that time. Any questions? Anything you'd like to see in here that's not, or?
Gary, how does this plan differ from prior years, if at all?
It doesn't differ.
Okay.
Do you have any ideas for doing anything you want to see different?
I just have one question. In terms of actually receiving the audited financial statements in order for the directors to have time to review them before the meeting, can they be distributed prior to the actual books?
Well, we're doing 4 audits right now, and then we want to make sure that when you get it, it's in good shape. We don't want to get it while there's any ongoing discussion with the auditors or with ourselves wording, or if they're questioning a presentation, we'd like to give you the final result. So that gets a little tricky because the timing is really close. And we have to close October 31st. 4 different agencies we have to produce the financials to have approved by the end of January, plus have them all audited and have the auditor get an opportunity. That said, we can keep that in mind to get them to you as soon as we can.
Right, no, I understand that that's a problem, but I think from the director's point of view, it's also a busy time of year. And so in order, also take into consideration the fact that we may need a little bit of additional time to do an adequate review.
Okay, we'll get it to you as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments?
And if you have any questions when you see the reports, you can contact me. I'll be happy to help you out before the meeting.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks.
Okay.
Now before all 5 committees is a resolution of the State of New York Housing Finance Agency, the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, the State of New York Mortgage Agency, the State of New York Municipal Bond Bank Agency, and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation. Audit committees approving an action plan for the period January 1, 2018 through December 31, 2018, assuming the first and second previously entered for all 5 committees. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution's adopted.
We now move to item 3, resolution reviewing and approving internal audit staff functions. Steve?
Morning.
Under the charter of the audit committees, the committee must review and approve the internal audit staff function annually. The document that you see here is the same as we've had in the past, although it's been updated to bring it current. I can go through it real briefly. The first paragraph talks pretty much about the audit committee's responsibility, which is to review and approve the group's purpose and authority, as well as their audit plan, budget, staffing, and to monitor internal and external audits. The second paragraph talks about the internal audit's responsibility, which is to develop and maintain an effective program of internal audits and to ensure that internal controls are in place. It goes on to talk about the audit plan, which is from April 1st of 17 to 3/31/18, which was approved by the committee on April 13th of last year. It mentions the status report that we sent to you quarterly. It also mentions that we present the audit reports and management's responses to the committee for acceptance and approval. Continues by giving a little background of the audit staff, of which there is a total of 5. We just recently filled the last position on November 30th. It had been vacant for a few months. And then it gives a background about myself, my career with the agencies, compensation, and any additional responsibilities. So once again, we're going to ask to approve the internal audit staff function.
That's the only question I would have. It's implicit in this, but just to be, do you feel that given the increased workload of the agency as a whole and the organization, that you have the resources you need to?
Yes,
Any other questions?
Well, it was related to your question,
Yeah.
actually. I had the same question. And the employees who are listed here are the only professional employees involved in this?
There's 4 individuals.
There are 4 individual professional employees that are responsible for all 5 agencies.
Correct.
And their salaries are governed by the union contract?
Yes. If you'd like to give them an increase, we'd be willing to submit the paperwork.
Christmas time.
Any other questions or comments? Linda?
And now before all 5 committees is a resolution of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, the State of New York Mortgage Agency, the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, the State of New York Municipal Bond Banking Agency, and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation audit committees reviewing and approving the internal audit staff functions. Assuming the first and second previously entered for all 5 committees, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
We move to item 4, resolution approving internal audits servicer audit report of Rhinebeck Bank.
Yes, here we looked at the mortgage records and systems of internal control for the single-family mortgages that were serviced by Rhinebeck as of 3/31 of 2017. As of our audit date, they were servicing approximately $19 million in loans. Rhinebeck is a subsidiary of Rhinebeck Bank Corp, MHC, which had about $729 million in assets as of 12/31/16. They are a full-service mortgage group. They deal with acquisitions, originations, tax collections, impaired loans, as well as servicing residential and commercial properties. They're participating in the agency's bond programs. Their payments can be made through a lockbox operation or any one of their branches. They're servicing our loans in their Poughkeepsie, New York facility, and their deposits are FDIC insured. The results of the audit, we were able to satisfactorily achieve our audit objectives. There was one item in the report, and management has responded to that item, and we're going to ask you to accept the report.
Yeah, I have a number of questions about this.
Okay?
First of all, one of the purposes of the audit is to ensure that the Sunny Mae mortgage loans are properly documented, assigned, and serviced. How do you go about doing that?
Well, we review the loans in a number of ways. I mean, we review the outstanding loans to make sure that they're compliant with agency program policies and procedures. We look at impaired loans to see that.
Are you looking at a sample, or are you looking?
Oh, a sample, yes. We're looking at
Yeah.
a sample. We look at impaired loans to see that they're being serviced correctly in terms of the servicer reaching out and trying to work with the borrower, and if not, what legal action they're taking. And then we look at what are the OREs, all of the banks call them REOs, difference being owned real estate versus real estate owned, to see that once the legal process is completed, that the loans now, our assets are transferred to our records, and then they're servicing them to sell the property and eventually pay us and put in insurance claims.
Do you actually do a physical review of the loan documents to ensure that the files are complete on those loans?
Yes.
How many loans, I mean, you gave us the dollar amount. of the servicing, but how many loans do they in fact service?
Rhinebeck in particular?
Rhinebeck, yeah.
To be honest with you, Joyce, I don't recall that. $19 million, it's a very small facility. In fact, this is the first time we've looked at it because it hadn't fallen on our radar. It's just the fact that we made a commitment to the financial services group, back then they were the banking department, that we would look at a small or medium-sized servicer occasionally. And this is actually the first time we've been to this facility.
Right, it's just an issue that I've been concerned about, having been in the situation of finding that servicers had in fact misplaced documents, and even government agencies have misplaced documents. The agency shall remain nameless. Wasn't this one. But that, especially during the financial crisis, as you know, that became a particular problem with being able to trace the actual the loan documents. And so I'm just wondering if that we could become satisfied that in fact they have their documents in order and accessible. You know where they are.
And we maintain a copy of the documentations in our vault here.
I'm sorry?
We also maintain a copy of the documentation in our vault with the agency, the notes.
In the agency's vault. Okay, is that in the same vault in Albany that the
No,
control?
it's your own.
You have your own vault,
Yeah.
okay.
It's good to have a vault.
Yeah, and the state controller's office also has a vault, and everything always went to the vault in Albany. I always wanted to see it.
We can give you a tour, it's very exciting.
Isn't the critical document the original note?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Isn't the critical document the original note?
Yes, along the mortgage note itself, yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, actually I
Oh, yeah.
did.
Please, go ahead, Jesse.
The other question I had actually was in regard to the hazard insurance issue, which you raised. I'm trying to read my own handwriting here. It's not only the documents, it's the ability to read them that counts. Okay, I mean, the, obviously there's difficulty with hazard insurance. In the sample of 30 loans which you reviewed, 29 of them did not in fact have the proper documentation, and the agency was not named as a, right. Was there any, and you then arrived at an agreement with the bank in which they would
Indemnify us.
indemnify us, etc. And they were also supposed to list Sunny Mae as the lost payee,
Right.
right? Was there any follow-up to ensure that that happened?
Yes, the single-family people followed up on the loans that were missing, the lost payee inscription. However, now that we have the indemnification in place, that would basically absolve them from doing that necessarily, because any issue that we may have from a loss point of view,
Now
they will
gets-
have to
Right.
make us whole.
And does that apply to all of the loans, or does that just apply to the loans that were, the 30 loans that were audited?
No, it applies to all of our loans that they are servicing.
Because that wasn't clear here. And the other, just relatively minor issue is that in the documentation you provided us, you have a copy of the letter which was sent to the bank, and in which you gave them 30 days to respond. And although you do obviously talk about the results, what we don't have here is the actual response that they sent.
The actual
Their
document.
response letter, yeah.
Okay.
And I would just suggest that in the future, we would like to see a complete set of the correspondence.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Linda?
Ready?
Yes.
All right, so now before the Sunny May Committee is a resolution of the State of New York Mortgage Agency Audit Committee reviewing and approving the servicer audit for Rhinebeck Bank. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Sunny May Committee, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution is adopted.
There being no unfinished business, I ask for motions and seconds to adjourn each of the 5 agency members and directors' committee meetings.
So assuming the first and second previously entered for all 5 committees, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the meeting's adjourned. The next audit committee meetings are scheduled for Thursday, November 25th, 2018 at 9 a.m.